Okay, everybody, Steve here in the Illinois recording studio. So this is a little bit of an extension of a video I did at home using a practice pad for a friend of mine who asked about left-hand technique and singles and stuff like that. So I wanted to expand on that a little bit and also use the kit and some other things to do a demo. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about left-hand technique. And first of all, what I do for left-hand technique is not anything, there's no like textbook thing here. There's no right or wrong way to do things. So a lot of different things end up working for people. Different things work for different people. That's okay, it's fine. And I do a number of different things, and I don't sit down and kind of work them out. They just sort of, I don't know, over the years they've worked themselves out naturally. I haven't really sat down and said, well, let me do it a different way or try different things. But just certain things come naturally. But when you learned, when we learned when we were young, we were taught, well, you have to have a certain stroke and approach the drum a certain way and have a certain control of your stick in your hand. And that's true and that's fine. You need all that when you're learning. But beyond that, when you've learned more, as you try to master the instrument, which never happens, by the way, I got news for you there, you can do things differently because there's no real rules here. So I am a traditional grip player, which means I hold the left-hand stick like this. This is your matched grip, and I kind of stink at matched grip playing, but this is my preference. And this is, so the way I approach this, when people say, well, what about singles and things like that? And keep in mind one other thing, get back up one more second. Things like singles and the speed and all that stuff, the chops thing, nobody needs to go like 200 miles an hour with singles. That doesn't really kind of fit in any music scenario that I can think of. And so what I consider is, do I have enough technique and facility in my technique to do any musical thing that comes my way and to express any musical idea I have in my head on the drums. I don't want to have an idea to express and then be so limited in my technique that I can't express it. So it's more for having enough to get the job done. Now, aside from that is the fun part where you say, well, yeah, that's fine, but I want to kind of just push myself just because I feel like it. I want to just see what I can do. Can I push it a little farther? Can I push it a little farther? Buddy Rich and Louis Belson were my heroes in terms of technical facility, and I will never have and never will reach those levels, but it's always fun to keep trying. So there's different things here. So let me show you just some of what I do. By the way, there are guys out there, I know them, who can do some of these things better than I do. And one day when I get a minute, I'll probably call them up and say, show me what you do so I can do better on mine. But in the meantime, this is what I do. Maybe it helps you. So traditional grip like this. You got the stick here. You get your thumb, and then your fourth finger is here. That's kind of for control, or sometimes like this with both fingers. But for me, that's where the stroke is. And that's with my wrist, okay? Okay, now people go, well, you got to keep your finger over there to control the stick. Well, generally speaking, yeah, because if you're not a well-controlled player, if you don't have your finger there, the stick is going to start flopping and flipping all over the place, and it's going to make it harder for you to play. But if after a while you've learned how to control things, you can control the stick differently. And also, as a backup once more, for me, I like to use finger control quite a bit and use the bounce on the drum head. So when you think about that, I want my stick to be back-weighted. So this is kind of like a fulcrum, like a seesaw. So that if my stick is front-weighted, and a lot of guys play with front-weighted sticks, but that's because they look getting a lot of 2 and 4 backbeats and they need the volume. But for what I do, it's different. So I want the stick to bounce and go back here as a heavier part. I don't want the heavy part up here. I want the heavy part back here so that we can get movement on the stick. Now, what I just did there was another way to approach this, and it's not traditional. So if you keep your hand here, but you can also move that finger away, but if you control the fulcrum with your thumb, that works too, okay? So, works. Now, when I think of finger control for singles, there's three different ways I do this. One would be like that. One would be with this finger over the stick. And one would be with my hand turned over. And there's Billy Gladstone's technique and the molar technique. There's a bunch of different techniques. And I kind of have some sort of weird mishmash of a bunch of different things. So I'm not professing one thing or the other. It's just what I do. But one of the techniques I use is this. And when I think about that, when we were kids, we used to have this paddle thing. It was called paddle ball. You had this little wooden paddle. It had this long elastic band on it. On the end was a rubber ball. And you would hit it, and the idea was to get that ball bouncing, but to be using the bounce and just barely moving the paddle to get that ball bouncing like crazy. Well, that's the same idea here. The stick is back weighted, number one. So when it comes down here, the rebound, you let the stick come up and rebound, and then you just control it with this third finger. So now there's three things here, right? You got the thumb open, this finger over the stick, this finger over the stick, and then you say, well, that's fine and dandy, but that's just finger control and you can't get that much volume out of that, which, is kind of true. I mean, you can't be cranking it hugely volume-wise and just doing it with your fingers. So sometimes what I will do, and again, it's subconscious, but if I want more volume, then I will kind of pinch the stick between these two fingers, turn over like this, and use more of my arms to get more volume. Yeah. So, and then for control of the stick, I use, there's the bounce, this finger and the fourth finger primarily. And I let the stick bounce and then kick it up with my fourth finger. Yeah? So there are different ways to control it. So then, when I was young, before I touched a drum set for a year and a half, all my first teacher did was have me play rudiments. Whether it was double stroke rolls, paradiddles, and on and on and on. There were 26 rudiments then. Now there's 4,000 rudiments. I can't keep track. But I learned how to control my hands, and those rudiments are very helpful. 5-stroke rolls. I used to say one of the greatest and simplest drum fills of all time is 2 eighth notes in a 5-stroke roll, which is, okay? But when you're playing, that's just a combination of 2 eighth notes and a couple of 5-stroke rolls thrown in. And I'll kind of take it a little better. I'll change the 5-stroke roll to make it like a 7. But I don't really think about it. It's just how I play it. But nonetheless, there are many, many easy things that come out of rudiments. And paradiddles were to give you that use of alternating singles and doubles. So, and a double stroke roll to me is critical. I mean, it's the old, but, and I used to do this when I taught, it's a long time ago, I used to teach, you can play around the drum set with that roll. I mean, all that is and moving the hands around different places on the drums. So it's easy ways for people to get used to creating interesting patterns, and also they're not complicated. It's just, So rudiments are very important to me. I don't know if anybody spends much time with them anymore. I know drumline people, that's a huge piece of what they do, but I don't know about drum set. Anyhow, So, in terms of control, that's, these are the things I do. They're unconventional, but if they work for me, they work. And, sometimes I'm just not conscious of it. I do it a certain way, and it just happens to feel like the right thing to do. So I'll play a little bit of different things to help see the benefit of how control of your hands through a combination of rudiments and just some of these other non-conventional methods can help you. And I think it allows you to execute ideas more easily and makes them more fun too. So just a few things here. And then I'll take this pad off and we'll do some things on the drum set. Okay, so put this down over here. It's a fun tune. It was written like, I think, 1922. It's called Bugle Call Rag. And I think the first name of it was Bugle Call Blues. But anyway, every big band in the whole entire world probably recorded that song at one point or another. Buddy Rich also recorded it a couple of times, once in a studio setting and once in a live setting. And in the live setting, Buddy's entire solo is just on the snare drum with the bass drum kicking 4 beats to the bar. And it's a classic example. From the way the name would suggest, it's almost like sort of like a military-ish kind of a march thing. And it's a great tune. The horn sections are killing it. And it's really cranking along. The tempo's probably around 120. So anyway, for my little contribution here, I'll do a little bit of playing on the kit. This is, by the way, my Craviato kit that Johnny made for me. This is kit number 2. Number 1 is here on display, but this one, 12, 14, 18, 5.5 snare. Johnny made this one specifically for me, and this one's never getting sold. This one stays with me forever. And so a few little things here, and then maybe I'll try to do a little bit of what I think Buddy's solo is kind of like on Bugle Call Rag, although it's never going to be like Buddy's solo. But anyway. Anyway, so kind of get the idea. So, hope that's helpful. If I can help with any more tips or ideas, or if you have questions, shoot me a note at vintagedrums@aol.com. I'll try to help you best I can, or point you in the direction of someone who knows this stuff better than I do. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll do some more of these down the line as we go along. Thanks, everybody.